in Cambridge, Canada. So they're publicly traded on the Canada Stock Exchange.
Cool. Down to our left here is Elephant Rock. Kind of looks like an elephant from this angle, sort of. Anyway, that's the Hawaii name for it. The Hawaiian name is Moho'oniki. And what's cool about Moho'oniki is that there's a gathering of hammerhead sharks that hangs out around there that people like to go diving with. It's one of those large gatherings like you might see off Cocos Island in Costa Rica or the Sea of Cortez or around the Galapagos Islands. And on Tuesday mornings and Saturday mornings, Lahaina divers will bring you over there and take you down to about 120 feet and let you hang out with sharks, which is kind of cool. So these open grass areas that you see are kikuyu grass, originally from Africa. Everywhere you see that light green grass on Maui used to be mesic forests, which are one of the most diverse ecosystems in Hawaii. That was all cleared over about a 60-year period to pasture cattle. Most of the vegetation that you see down below us here is not native to Hawaii. The gray, wispy-looking trees are Casuarina, originally from Australia and New Zealand. The round crown trees are mangoes from India. Also down there are some strawberry guavas from South America, rose apples from Indonesia, all kinds of different stuff. But we're going to see some awesome native forests a little bit further along here. This is Halawa Valley. This used to be the most populated place on Molokai when Europeans first showed up. And for good reason. There's a great anchorage for the canoes there and a consistent freshwater stream for drinking water and agriculture. And then to our left here, Jackie, you can see Halawa Falls. You can hike into the bottom waterfall. Cool. Can y'all still hear the music okay? See how the clouds are being born right here ahead of us. That's why we have a wet side of the island and a dry side of the island. The trade winds blow from the northeast. As the air hits the island, the air rises. As the air rises, it expands and cools down. Cold air holds less moisture, so the clouds form, and then it precipitates on the windward side of the island. As the air moves over the island, it begins to move downhill and compress. As it compresses, it warms up. Warm air holds more moisture, so the clouds dissipate. That's why we have rainforests on one side and deserts on the other. Add to that the drastic changes in altitude, and that's why we have so many different climate zones. Now, as we look out to the ocean ahead of us here, it's kind of interesting to think of the first people who crossed that ocean and make it here to the Hawaiian Islands. It's thought that they were Marquesan fishermen who were blown off course and were lucky enough to make landfall here, smart enough to be able to retrace their steps back to the Marquesas Islands to get enough people to establish a small population. And that happened sometime around 2,500 years ago. And they lived here in relative seclusion until the next wave of people came, and those people came from Tahiti, or what we know as Tahiti. And their journey was a little bit more purposeful. After 200 generations of living only on islands, they had no memory of what it was like to live on a continental landmass. So in their worldview, they viewed that the whole world was nothing but a great ocean punctuated with islands. And every island that they lived on at night had a star that went over the top of it, so they reasoned that every star must have an island under it. And with a great spirit of adventure, they launched out into the big blue looking for those innumerable islands. Once in a while, they were lucky enough to find them, but for the most part, many of the people on those journeys probably perished at sea from dehydration or starvation. The ones that were lucky enough to find the big island, though, must have been pretty stoked about it. They found there was a star that went over the top of it at night, which they called Hoku Lea. Hoku means star. Lea means glad or happy, so it's the happy star. We know it as Arcturus, or the bear star, and it's a pretty easy star to find in the night sky if you know where the Big Dipper is. All you have to do is just follow the handle away from the cup, double the distance of that handle, and you'll find a big orange star, and that's Hoku Lea. back to Corvallis, you can look up in the night sky and look at that star and think of Hawaii and find your way back. This is Papalua Falls. This comes down about 1,900 feet in a series of falls. And Jackie and Kent, I forgot to ask where y'all are from.
North of Chicago, near the Wisconsin state line.
Cool. So little town?
Utah. Yep.
Oh. Where are we from?
Little.
Huh?
Yeah, I was just asking if it was like a small town outside.
Yeah, it's a small town near the Wisconsin border,
Cool.
north of Chicago, about halfway between Milwaukee and Chicago.
Cool. Bet y'all are glad winter's over.
Oh yeah,
It's a big one, huh?
that waterfall is spectacular.
Awesome, huh? You can see these light green puffy-looking trees on the valley bottom and on the valley wall. We'll see lots of those as we go along. Those are kui nut trees brought by the Polynesians. They use the oil from the nuts of those trees to burn in their lamps and torches, and there are also some medicinal uses for that oil. It's very good for healing wounds and burns on the skin. Now these valleys, like this next one, Wailau Valley, that we'll be passing, used to be very populated and cultivated. They used to grow a lot of taro, which is a root vegetable that they make poi from, which I think is pretty tasty, but most people aren't too fond of it. It's not uncommon to see a bumper sticker around town that says poi happens. That's how most people feel about it. Anyway, it's quite nutritious. It's about 18% protein. It's very high in vitamins A, C, B6, B12, and iron. And you can eat the leaves, the stems, and the roots. You just have to cook it all really well first because it's laden with calcium oxalate, which is a toxin that'll ruin your day if you don't. Oh, we're going to see some nice rainbows here in a minute. Now these gray cliffs are plants called Brighamian cygnus. There are only about 350 of them left on the planet. And the reason they're still on these cliffs is because they're out of range of the goats that would otherwise gobble them up. The one problem that the Brighamian cygnus still faces is that their native pollinator, a particular insect, is extinct. So the only way that they get pollinated anymore is by some botanists from the University of Hawaii who will rappel down those cliffs and actually hand pollinate those plants. So it's one of those extreme sports that doesn't make it onto a Red Bull commercial. Just wacky scientists doing their job. Out ahead of us in the distance you can see that peninsula of land. That's Kalaupapa. You may have read about that or heard about that. That's where the victims of Hansen's disease or leprosy were exiled in the 1800s. They used to be taken there by the boatload and thrown overboard, made to swim to shore through the breakers. If they survived that ordeal, they were left to fend for themselves, trapped by the cliffs. That started in 1866, and after about 3 years of that happening, a Catholic priest by the name of Father Damien showed up. He was their advocate, helped them organize their community, and cared for them. And he was recently canonized as a saint by the Catholic Church for his efforts with the lepers of Molokai.
The sound of the ocean soothes my restless soul. Sound of the ocean rocks me all night long. Those hot, long summer days, lying there in the sun on a white sandy beach of Hawaii. The sound of the ocean.
And so right here you can see where a 600-foot chunk of cliff broke off about 5 weeks ago.
The sound of the ocean
Must have made quite a bump.
rocks me all night long. Oh, last night in my dreams I saw your face again. We were there in the sun on a white sandy beach. Oh,
your favorite thing about living in Hawaii?
Not living in Hawaii. I guess just all the healthy living, all the good local organic food I can eat, and all the good exercise, the paddleboarding and swimming and all of that. And the community here, pretty tight community. It's a place I feel pretty secure. If things go a little haywire in the world, Maui's a pretty good place to be, you know.